is not transphobic.
I love that. Yes,
Yeah.
I love that. I love it.
Very into truth and reality, or at least perception.
Some hard truths.
Hard truths, yes.
Hard
The medical industry, well-intentioned but ignorant medical professionals, doctors, pediatricians, teachers, educators, colleges, the media, and just well-intentioned everyday people, especially liberals who just want to do the right thing, but they just don't have all the information that this isn't experimental and it's unethical in many, many cases. So, yeah, we're not doing this. But when I say we, yeah, there's very educated and professional adults who should know better and do have a responsibility and an ethic to do no harm. And they have harmed many of us, and they're still harming us because many of us cannot access healthcare options. And we're ignored. Like, people call an office, they're ignored, their emails are ignored because they don't want to have to deal with the responsibility of harming us because it doesn't fit their narrative and what they're selling, this affirmational, what they're selling as the only cure, the miracle cure, and the snake oil.
The least creative solution.
The least creative solution, yeah. So, it's just a shame. There's certain organizations, I believe Gigi mentioned, Planned Parenthood is a huge, they're the ones primarily giving out free prescriptions of testosterone without any gatekeeping or safeguarding measures in place. And then in terms of higher up, I mean, there's a lot of celebrities that are, promoting this, and obviously in more liberal areas, celebrities and public figures and mainstream media outlets are, left-leaning media outlets are spreading only this one narrative that affirmation is the way to go. They're not talking about detransition, and they keep spreading the misinformation of from these studies that were not high-quality studies that do not prove the false information that there is only a 1% detransition rate or regret rate, and also promoting the false statistics of a high suicide rate when it actually quality research shows that suicide rates are actually higher after transition, and as Gigi said, regret rates can be seen up to 10 years down the line, and it takes a few years, to be able to accept the impact after you've, digested the placebo effect long enough from all of these different procedures. So there is a placebo effect that you get, and testosterone and estrogen and puberty blockers, these things can operate as substances. So I consider myself that I was abusing testosterone as a substance, even though it was medically prescribed, incorrectly prescribed. So it's all over the place, but I think primarily the harm lies with WPATH. WPATH, the World Professional Organization for Transgender Health. So they are spreading this information that the affirmation model is the way to go. They are removing safeguarding measures that used to be in place decades before when people typically transition more successfully. So they're not gatekeeping anymore or doing safeguarding measures, which is why it's so good that there is now a counter, more ethical organization called GenSpect. And GenSpect is the rational approach to gender, and they offer a nuanced response to gender dysphoria with qualified professionals, therapists. I have seen 2 therapists from GenSpect. They are the most high-quality therapists that I have ever known. I've had a lot of different low-quality therapists. They're nuanced. They have helped me immensely. I'm forever grateful to GenSpect and to those therapists for personally helping me work through my issues holistically versus giving me the one-track affirmational approach. Original standards of care were, I believe, in the late 70s or early 80s, and this was known as the Harry Benjamin standards of care. Those were primarily just a very small number of people organizing to help treat the classical cases of gender dysphoria, which were primarily males, homosexual males who were very effeminate and who were already living sort of a drag lifestyle, or a smaller number of lesbians, so homosexual women. And these were very small cases, along with straight heterosexual males who had a paraphilia known as onogynephilia, the attraction to the thought and fantasy of oneself as a woman and living in a woman's role. And so there used to be safeguarding measures in place where they would have to go through a much more extensive process to help to safeguard those who would be likely to have a reasonable expectation for medicalization, and those who were not mentally stable to do it. They were given care as a long-term care situation with close contact. They had to live as the opposite sex and see if they could do it successfully. Could they pass successfully? Were they able to integrate into society and be a functional member of society? Those who weren't were weeded out. And over the years, these types of individuals, which were a small number of people, started to integrate more into the burgeoning LGB movement, the lesbian, gay, and bisexual liberation movement in the 80s and 90s. These individuals were usually gay men or lesbians, so they were integrated into this community, and it became popular to then accept homosexuality and as another form of lifestyle. And along with that, the sort of trans idea got tacked onto that. And it's since spread as each WPATH standards of care have kept updating over the years. And the standards of care have now become completely discredited. There are standards of care in there, for example, for eunuch gender, okay, when someone just wants to become a eunuch, and they're validating this with affirmation. I mean, there's a lot of different fetishes that are being just all lumped under this idea of trans, when originally it just meant this very, very particular, effeminate men or highly effeminate homosexual men, straight men with fetishes, or very masculine butch lesbian women. And now it's being completely radically changed to where we're now seeing about 4,000% increase in young women and teenage girls identifying as transgender, right? That is a social contagion. Well-documented social contagions happen within young women populations, and especially over social media. And so it started to change, I would say, maybe like in the 2010s, and it's just become more rapid and more rapid. Very little research has been done so far, and so they're essentially stripping down all of the standards of care, all of the safeguarding measures and gatekeeping procedures, and simultaneously spreading this massive message of affirmation only and this false suicide statistic, at the same time that the internet is burgeoning and everyone is becoming hyper-connected online, and anxiety and depression rates and social isolation rates are increasing in all populations, especially teenage girls. So all of these factors happening at once in the mid-2010s until present is causing this phenomena of just an extreme number of confused young people being undergoing these medical procedures that are experimental, that have many complications, and that have a much higher regret rate than are being admitted by these medical professionals. And we're listening to children make these decisions when they're clearly not in a long-term planning stage of development, and we know they're pushing back. For adults to sign off on that is unethical, irresponsible, and cruel.
It's cruel.
So it only takes a couple of years for most people to, develop that prefrontal cortex and
long-term
thinking, consequences, and to be able to sort of go through that developmental identity versus role confusion stage of development, and then enter adulthood.
Yeah.
And we're sabotaging that physically and psychologically.